Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So, One Piece chapter 1117 is out. If you guys haven't checked out that chapter yet, I suggest that you do so because I will be spoiling you. But now that you have, let's begin. I gotta be honest with you guys, I was seriously worried there for a moment. Like, panic had set in, depression had set in. I was pretty certain that, One Piece was heading to its end. But you know, Oda continues to be a mad lad, man. He is inside of our brains. He knew that we were starting to think, oh no, the story's about to end. So he chose this chapter to confirm, without a shadow of a doubt, that we still have 10 more years of One Piece. Let's go.
I'm not leaving.
The show goes on! Cause I ain't going nowhere!
Bro, that's Oda right now. It was the best of times, and it was the worst of times. Guys, right now is such a dangerous time for me as a content creator, but I think just generally for One Piece fans, because anything could happen next. And that includes the arc just being over. Seriously, that was a big focus of this chapter. Clearly what Oda is setting up is these Straw Hats are getting ready to leave. All of the pieces are coming together, including Jinbei and Zoro, Luffy, Dory, and Brogy. Everyone is close to being ready to coup de burst and then leave. The Gorosei at the same time are distracted. Likewise, this chapter implies that Vegapunk's message is over. The stream of reveals, the 10 out of 10 chapters, back to back to back to back, it's done. Egghead itself could be over in the next 2 or so chapters. That is what you should be thinking. But as is the case at practically any other point in the One Piece story, there could also be more. We could have a twist incoming leading to some more awesome things that you're looking forward to. That is also a possibility. Basically, guys, right now we are at the crux of a point where most likely people will be disappointed if you expect more than what we actually get. Given I am your resident theory channel, it puts me in an awkward spot, so I want to talk about this chapter in 2 ways. First, we're going to talk about it as if, Egghead is basically over, and now we're just trying to leave. I want to share my thoughts about how I feel if we were to leave right now, based on everything that's happened. But I will also speculate more after that. But I guess we'll start off with this, right? Just because there's things in Egghead that you still wanted to learn, that you felt like might have fit here. This was the perfect place to, for instance, reveal the name of the ancient kingdom. Just because we're not getting it here does not mean that we're not getting it. Quite honestly, I've been a mess over the last several chapters because I don't want the story of One Piece to end, right? So we're getting all these reveals and things that I've been excited for forever. And then at the same time, I'm kind of depressed because it's like I don't really want to know yet. And I understand that's just me, right? You don't have to feel that way. But you should recognize, right, that ending Egghead with questions still left just means that there's another great moment, another great reveal that we're still waiting for in the future. Mysteries still remain. Meaning Oda's not leaving. We still got a lot of content left to go. So if Egghead were to end here and now, do I feel satisfied by the arc? And the answer to that is a definitive, screaming at the top of my lungs as loud as humanly possible, yes. In my opinion, Egghead will go down as one of the best arcs ever in One Piece. You could argue right now, top 2, top 3, maybe it's top 1. It's subjective, but I definitely think that you could put it up there. Really what differentiates the arcs in my mind, the experience of the arcs, especially in retrospect, is the end of them. This itself is a big conversation, but boiled down to its simplest terms, I just want to feel satisfied by the conclusion, meaning that Oda took all of these various pieces that he layered together the whole time to create a climactic, powerful ending that I can then reread several times after that and still think, wow, this is amazing. And that pretty much describes Egghead at the moment right now perfectly. Look, this whole arc was leading to Vegapunk's speech at the end, and I said this a couple weeks ago, but it's just important that whatever we get from Vegapunk's speech, it matches what we hoped it could be. And it was that and some. And I'm not saying here that the arc 100% has to do everything that the fans demand. That's not what I'm saying, right? It's just about the experience. You read the chapters, you lived in the moment, you felt it, right? I felt it, the hype was incredible. The world building reveals, flooding, the Gorosei and their powers, Kuma's flashback, Punk records. And I guess just the known fallout of everything that Vegapunk says because he is speaking to the entire world, right? Consequences are imminent. It was top level, And part of what made it work was that Oda didn't actually give us what we thought that we'd get, instead gave us something even more exciting related to it. And with the things that were withheld, and things were withheld, we know that was actually point blank the end of this chapter. Vegapunk was not done speaking. He had more to say. He was about to reveal something about the D initial before the broadcast got cut. All of this stuff is still coming, whether it's sooner or in some other arc. But all I'm really trying to say is that I feel satisfied by this end, 1,000,000%. And so with that being said, Oda does not have to do anything else here. We can actually leave. There's some exception to this, but we can actually leave, and that's fine. That might be Oda's plan. Certainly at this point, this is what we should be thinking, because that's the impression that Oda leaves us with at the end of the chapter. The broadcast is over. It's done. It was cut, right? No more words from Vegapunk, period. End of story. Maybe not. But I want to make sure that you don't set yourself up for disappointment. Don't tarnish the end of one of the greatest arcs in all of One Piece just by mentally tying yourself in a knot, because there could have been more, or Oda could have done more. Okay, so required speech out of the way. Do I actually think that the arc is over? No. I mean, yes I do, because that's what Oda is trying to tell me, but like my brain is like, wait a second though. Here's a smoking gun in my mind that there is the potential for more here if Oda chooses to pursue it. And that is the fact that in the last chapter of One Piece, we got a reveal from York that there's something going on here with the whole speech from Vegapunk, all the setup, the Din and Mushi, everything that even she was not aware of. The Stella lied to her, while seemingly not being suspicious of her at all. And also, she doesn't know how he was able to do it. This is a lingering mystery, one that would be very difficult and less impactful to pursue in some other arc. The ones who supposedly know the truth are actually present in Vegapunk's recording. All of these Vegapunks are now dead. So the Vegapunks that Vegapunk or the Stella Vegapunk trusted were Pythagoras and Shaka, aka the good Vegapunk and the quote-unquote wise Vegapunk. As far as we are aware, the greed Vegapunk, the violence Vegapunk, and the evil Vegapunk were left in the dark. I wonder why. Perhaps their aspect has something to do with it. They are untrustworthy Vegapunks by nature. But given that this is a now officially and overtly stated mystery in the story, I'm of the opinion that Oda should address it before this arc concludes. Lilith, Atlas, and York could potentially speculate, but they don't actually know. You guys should know if you follow my reviews, my theory over the past however long is that there's another Vegapunk that is here that we're not aware of, which is Punk Records itself, Vegapunk's brain. That's just a theory. It doesn't have to be true, but the brain could actually know and reveal the rest of this officially, given that it is the only one that seems capable at this moment in time. We end this chapter, the message cuts out, but then maybe the message returns with a different source, because this is Vegapunk that we're talking about, and it would be pretty convenient to have more than one source. A backup server, so to speak. Just intuitively, that seems like a smart thing to do. And then you hear the brain itself communicate, potentially even warning the world about its treacherous altar. But like, to be really honest with you guys, it doesn't even need to be that complicated. Do you guys think that it makes sense? Does it make sense to you that the ancient giant robot, technology of the ancient kingdom, which has some relationship with Joy Boy, has said one thing that throughout the conclusion of this arc? You really think that it got one shot? Press X for doubt. In fact, even the Gorosei themselves seem a little bit confused. Oda could literally be trolling us, but he's not gonna get me because I am familiar with his game. So obviously at the end of this chapter, we see the signal cut off, but it may be true that all the Gorosei managed to accomplish here is a temporary thing. And the next chapter will begin and the message will flip back on as the ancient giant robot gets back up. And because Oda is a known troll, don't be surprised if something like this occurs, but a few seconds of the broadcast is lost forever, specifically the part of the broadcast talking about the initial D and the significant individual that is among them. This is an absolutely incredibly genius way to hide information, even while Vegapunk, while recording it, was trying to be logical and put things in the right order. But anyway guys, I just think intuitively from all the hype that has led up to the reveal of the ancient giant robot, for it to essentially be attacked one time by the Gorosei and then the message just cuts out, I don't know how much sense that makes to me. It also seems worthy to speculate that maybe the ancient giant robot is just powered down now. We know that it has power issues because it wasn't powered on at the beginning of this arc. It required Luffy to go gear 5th before it turned on. Even in this chapter, we see that Luffy is concerned that none of the Gorosei are following him, and he's looking back like, hey, where did they go? This is weird. Luffy might be confused enough or curious enough to go and find them, despite the fact that everyone is telling him it's time to leave. So he goes Gear 5th again, and the robot turns back on. I'm absolutely not gonna die on this hill, guys, I promise you. I'm just saying that it seems possible. But even if the robot stays down and that source of the message is truly over, there are other avenues in which the message could potentially continue. We've talked about the connections between Vegapunk and the Revolutionary Army. Made a Vegapunk theory a long time ago, back when the message first started, about what Vegapunk's plan could be. Much of that theory is now wrong. RIP. But there are still aspects of it that could come into play at any point in time. And important among this is the connection between Dr. Vegapunk, the Revolutionary Army and Dragon, and the country of O'Hara. In one of Vegapunk's flashbacks, he visits the island of O'Hara after the scholars have been killed, and there he meets Dragon, and they talk about the people of O'Hara and their will. Dragon essentially makes a promise there that one day he will finish what Clover started. He will reveal the secrets of O'Hara to the world just as Clover intended. And clearly part of this had an effect on Vegapunk, because after this, Vegapunk started researching the Void Century, basically resumed the scholars' research on his own. And the fruits of this labor is now on full display with the recording. But it's important that this wasn't just Vegapunk's desire. This was Dragon's desire as well. He made a promise, and promises are important in the story of One Piece. So this takes us back to the present timeline of the story. The world government has turned on Vegapunk, and Vegapunk pretty much now knows that he's going to die. Shaka calls Dragon, literally at the beginning of this arc. He knows what's about to happen. In the reveal that he is about to die, we now know that this will trigger the death switch that will start his recording. From the very beginning of this arc, Vegapunk is convinced that his recording is about to be revealed to the world, and he calls Dragon. What is it that he said to Dragon? We don't know. Why did he feel the need to call Dragon? We don't know. Dragon, throughout all of this, even as we've panned to him multiple times, has been silent. So the theory has essentially been that Dragon is in on this, that nothing about this is a surprise to him. And I tied this into a hypothetical of the first time that we meet the Stella Vegapunk in Egghead. We see that he has been utilizing warping technology. He is literally stuck inside, half inside, the ancient giant robot. We now know, don't we, why this is the case. Because he was planting the Denen Mushi inside of the robot. But it's warping technology. We don't know the extent of this power. Maybe he also utilized this to be able to physically visit Dragon right at the beginning of this arc, to give Dragon something important, perhaps another source, another Denen Mushi. This can work one of many ways. Maybe Vegapunk's recording in Egghead is done, but Dragon can flip a switch to turn it back on. I think more interesting, however, is if Vegapunk's recording is done and then we pan to Dragon, who finishes Vegapunk's recording on his own live. And in a way, this would be really fitting, because the last thing that we're left with from Vegapunk is the reveal of the initial D. He begins to talk about someone important among them. Then, doom, you have Dragon. And the first thing that Dragon says is that this is Monkey D. Dragon. And I actually don't think that much of the world even knows that Monkey D. Dragon, that's his name. I think they know him as Dragon. So that will be a reveal to the world. And it would naturally make them think about Monkey D. Luffy as well as Garp, which is kind of hype. But I would be lying to you if I thought that this theory was as fitting as the day that I recorded that video. And the main reason is that we've gotten further context about who Vegapunk is and his motivations. Vegapunk isn't trying to choose a side. He isn't trying to start a war. All the way up to the end, he's really played the middle. He doesn't know who was right or who was wrong. So you could argue that Vegapunk giving the keys to his recording to Dragon and the Revolutionary Army at this point in time does not fit his character. He is not a revolutionary and has not sided with them. Even as Vegapunk has betrayed the world government multiple times here in recent events, right? It's always for the pursuit of like some kind of justice as he sees it. None of this happens until the world government decides to kill Vegapunk himself. Further than this, Vegapunk decides to record this message after the government utilizes a weapon which confirms theories that he already had. He needed somebody to use the weapon to even start speaking. Bonnie is the ultimate authority chip of the Pacifista, but the only way that she or the world government or the world ever discovers this is if they turn the Pacifista on her. And I think that there's now a legitimate argument to be made that Vegapunk's message doesn't actually begin until something powers the ancient giant robot. None of this would be happening if the robot wasn't on, and Vegapunk did not possess its power source. So without Luffy being here, going Gear 5th, turning the robot on, even after Vegapunk has died, the message doesn't begin. I understand that this doesn't have to be the case. This is unconfirmed headcanon, but it makes a lot of sense to me. And I think that the overall point is that it's thematically fitting for Vegapunk to essentially have taken as much of this out of his hands as he could. The world government will be betrayed after certain things that Vegapunk has no control over occur. Does this make sense? So this leads us into our last theory that I got from a member of my channel, Perpetual Punster. This is possibly the most impactful and powerful way to end the Egghead Island arc, if Oda chooses this route. Guys, Robin and Egghead has been very weird. From very early on in the arc, she gets attacked, she's injured, and she's basically separated, put on an island from everybody else. She has done nothing. Meanwhile, we've gotten some events that remind us of the danger that Robin is in being a scholar of Ohara. And Zou Nekomamushi warns us that many powerful people are going to be after Robin because of her ability to read the poneglyphs. That's unique. And then here in Egghead, right, you have some scenes with the Gorosei specifically targeting Robin. But I guess long story short is that her characterization at the end of this arc is incredibly strange. And there's a theory that kind of fits that would make this make sense. What if one of the Vegapunks who knew about this message actually talked to Robin and gave her a choice, gave her the power to fulfill Ohara's will, if that is what she desired as the last remaining scholar of Ohara? Maybe it's more fitting in Vegapunk's mind for Robin to fulfill Clover's will, if that is what she desires. So once again, it's really not Vegapunk that's betraying the world government, it's the world government's decisions that will have consequences. If you guys can't tell, I love this theory, and part of what makes it so awesome is that just from how I know Robin, as a member of the Strides for however many chapters it's been, there's a distinct possibility that Vegapunk gives her the mic, and she chooses to say nothing. Robin is probably the most trustworthy person to both have this knowledge and be capable of sharing it. She also probably knows more than anybody else. I'm certain that she's read more poneglyphs than anybody, with the exception of the Roger Pirates, obviously. So I just think that she would have the best perspective about what exactly to share and what isn't important yet. But once again, guys, are any of these theories true? We don't know, right? This is why it's dangerous, because something like speculating that Robin will finish the message, I'm sure that a lot of you will like that just fundamentally, if Oda chooses to go down that route. And if we don't get it, it could potentially be disappointing, and I don't want you to be disappointed. All I really want to do is justify that I think that it's a fair thought at this moment that the message isn't quite complete, however it finishes. But anyway, let's make sure that we thoroughly cover this chapter and all the little details. At the very beginning, we pan to the Pirate Island Beehive, and there we see Don Krieg and Pearl. Also probably Geen. Guys, I shit you not, I had a video planned out and even had a thumbnail made for basically the concept was of things that Oda has forgotten about. That was obviously meant to be kind of over the top, right? Like, did Oda really forget? You know, but that was a concept of the video of things from like way earlier in the story that seem unlikely to ever pay off. And the thumbnail was Geen. This is why I have no credibility. Although it would have been an interesting video, I'm kind of glad at this point in time that I didn't make it. And of course we knew that Geen would show up again at some point in the story because Oda just dots his I's and he crosses his T's like that. We still have the lingering question of, does Geen really matter? Are we ever gonna get real story with that character again? Probably not. But it do be like that sometimes. The point is that Oda certainly has not forgotten. And he's really good at finding ways to reintroduce these things. And it's just cool to think that after the Strats entered the Grand Line, the Greek pirates somehow pulled themselves together. Maybe it was during the 2-year time skip that they were able to conquer the Grand Line. They came into the New World and were once again completely obliterated by somebody way stronger than them. Not Mihawk this time, but Blackbeard. But now they're sort of a member of Blackbeard's crew as perhaps conquered entities. So when the Strats fight them at the end of the story, they'll be there and there could be something from that. But anyway, on Beehive itself, we see all the pirates there reacting to the reveal that there's probably buried, flooded civilizations at the bottom of the ocean floor and likely a lot of treasure. This has officially become the great age of diving. I bet you suddenly a lot of folk might want to be friendly with the fishmen, huh? It also kind of makes you wonder whether this was the reason that Imu and the Gorosei perhaps allowed the fishmen to be a enslaved race. Like, they're dangerous to potentially reveal some of the truths, the secrets of the world that they did not want out there. But there's going to be a direct and immediate effect from Vegapunk's words, and that is the fact that actual secrets of the world's past exist underneath the ocean. People will dive to go look for them. They will discover them all around the world simultaneously. There is absolutely no way that Imu and the Gorosei can combat this without declaring war on, essentially attacking every island of the world at the same time. Basically, it's about to get spicy. Basically, Vegapunk's message functions exactly the same as Roger's declaration leading to the Great Age of Piracy. There is going to be a whole lot of people setting out to the seas, looking for wealth, fame, and power. And interestingly, they don't actually have to refer to themselves as pirates. They can just be archaeologists. The chapter then pivots to Kobe and the members of Sword after they had left the pirate island. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I wasn't entirely sure if I was still hyped for Sword after the reveal that they weren't like this secret organization that we thought that they were initially. For me, it was a little bit of a bummer that this was just common knowledge and that you turn in your paperwork, you essentially quit. But the processing will occur after you've done something that isn't legal. But this chapter reeled me back in, and it did so because I got the sense, the impression, that Sword is about to act independently and unified in a way which could have consequences. Especially this conversation right here. Hey, things are really coming to a head, aren't they, Prince? Yeah, it sounds like we're gonna get some hard-to-hear answers soon. It's our turn to step up. It sounds to me like they aren't trying to be biased. They aren't affiliating themselves with a faction for the sake of it. They're trying to, just like the Straw Hats, just like Vegapunk, understand the truth and then decide from that. Honestly, I'm just incredibly hyped for Kobe to take his place in these historic events and make his presence known. To do that, he might need to be free of the shackles of the world government and the Marines under Akainu's leadership. This also probably relates to another part of the chapter where we saw Smoker talking to Tashigi, and Smoker is going somewhere, but we don't actually know for sure where he's going, but we can speculate, right? Speculation is that Smoker's probably heading to Egghead. Probably. This is another reason to think that Egghead might not actually be over yet. What exactly is Smoker gonna do in Egghead that's gonna have any consequence while we're still here? Or is it just that Smoker needs to be there so that he can see what has actually been occurring? Because that's Smoker's whole story, right? Is that he's been a part of government manipulation and he knows it. As he's been following the strats, Smoker has learned a lot about how the world truly is. Different to how people say the world is. Honestly, this is like the one thing that I feel like Smoker has learned throughout the course of the story is that the news can be misleading and sometimes you just have to see it. You have to experience it. And maybe that's the exact reason why Smoker is potentially heading to Egghead. Morgan's literally just reported that Monkey D. Luffy was holding Vegapunk hostage, right? But if anybody among the Marines knows about Luffy, it is Smoker. Smoker should know that that's probably not a thing that Straw Hat Luffy would do, you know? And so this becomes like an important thing for Smoker to see, especially now that Vegapunk has died. This could end up being the final nail in the coffin, leading to what I think has been set up the entire time, which is Smoker defecting from the Marines. Smoker being a member of the Grand Fleet is also a big want of mine. When you actually analyze the Straw Hat crew, like the crew itself as well as the Grand Fleet, they end up collecting individuals and entities from every possible faction that exists in the One Piece world, but one notable one that is currently missing is the Marines. I'm just saying. But anyway, the chapter continues and we get some awesome action between the Gorosei and the scattered Straw Hats, the ships, the giants. All of this was incredibly cool. I like the moment between Zoro and Venus Juro. It's just the kind of thing that Oda throws in there to tease us. But with it, there's a lot of other hype things that are happening or that we're learning, like Oda emphasizes that Zoro is using a cursed Katetsu blade. This confirms pretty much the theory that Venus Juro possesses the supreme grade Katetsu blade, but even his name, Venus Juro, it sounds like a name that is from Wano. And character themselves comes off as somebody who is from Wano. But then you gotta start asking yourself some questions. What was Venus Juro to Wano 800 years ago? Or what was that line to Wano 800 years ago? We now know that Zoro is a descendant of royalty from Wano, so there's like an interesting interaction occurring here. Most likely the Gorosei and Zoro's family have history, and it's probably an epic story. But I just want to make sure that I say this, because I often don't say things that I enjoy just because there isn't a whole lot to say about it. There's not discussion there. But the Giants, man, the Giants were so freaking cool in the chapter. Just their expressions, the panel itself, the way that it was drawn, moving the ships, that panel blew me away. Honestly, I feel a little bit about Usopp. You see this happen and it's life-changing. Suddenly, I want to be a brave warrior of the sea. But the Vice Admirals step in to try and stop them. There was a lot of cool interactions here as well. I wish that they wouldn't, though. Could you just please not? I know you guys want to feel like you're doing something, but you really do not know what is going on. So if you would just go back to your corner and just watch Luffy save the day, that would be great. But it is actually pretty crazy and honestly depressing that, you know, the Vice Admirals can observe everything that the Gorosei have been doing and Eggheads. They know what they have been doing. They know how evil they are, how they disregard life, and they're still trying to oppose the Straw Hats. I mean, it's realistic, and that's why it works, but it's also why it's sad. But of course, all this leads to the end, where we see that the Gorosei now know what their target is, the ancient giant robot. That's where they suspect that the broadcast is originating from. Another spectacular panel in the same freaking chapter. Oda just went off this week. And this is word for word the last thing that Vegapunk could say. It is for those of you who are scattered all across the world, those of you who carry the letter D in your name. Among you there is, and we get one syllable of his next word. Mo. Look, I'm not going to try to spend any time whatsoever trying to dissect what this word is. I have no idea what is occurring here. Is this katakana? Is this kanji? Is the syllable like in English? So could we use mo as the start of this word, or is it some other complicated thing? I have literally no idea. But what I can tell you is I think that Vegapunk was about to reveal Nika. That's what I think. I think that written on the poneglyphs, it is prophesied that some person with the initial D is supposed to save the world. And we know who this person is. This is Luffy. We also got context related to this from Marineford as an example. Whitebeard tells us that Gold T. Roger was looking for somebody, but that person was not Marshall D. Teach. I do think, however, that Roger was looking for somebody with the D initial in their name, and he thought that it would be his son. But it is in fact Luffy. There's something about all of this that is written on the poneglyphs. I believe that the poneglyph contains prophecies similar to Toki's speech, as well as what we got from Madame Charlie in Fishman Island. And my theory is that these prophecies speculate that a person from the family D will one day be Joy Boy and save the world. Something to that effect. And in order to be Joy Boy, you will have to possess the Nika fruit, like we know that Luffy does. So yeah, if I'm being entirely honest, I'm not even mad that the message got cut off at this point in time, because I feel like I already pretty much understand what Vegapunk was about to explain. Maybe there's some details he could have thrown in there that, you know, we don't know, but the overall premise of it, I think that we get as fans. And really, the message being interrupted or stopped just prevents the world from knowing, which clearly is not an important thing yet, but will undoubtedly occur in the future. So I guess my opinion is that this was a perfect place to end it, because even though it has ended, I don't feel like I'm missing anything. It's just gatekeeping knowledge from the world, and I suppose from the Straw Hat crew themselves. But as always, extremely hyped to see where we go from here. What we said could be true, could be not, we'll find out. But as always, I'm curious as to what you guys think, whether you noticed something from the chapter that I might have missed. Just share your thoughts. Remember, check out my book, The Booms, link is in the description. Like the video, subscribe, click the bell to be notified, join the squad, and as always guys, have a wonderful day.